Well, I'm joined on Talking Pints by Jerry Hayes. I'm not sure that Jerry and I agree on very much, but hey, it's lovely to have you here.
And it's nice to have a decent gin and tonic. This is not water. This is not water, I can promise you. But there's no ice.
Jerry, you've been a pretty high-profile barrister. You've taken some pretty full-on, serious cases.
Yeah.
I mean, involving the worst crimes that humanity can commit. When you take on a brief for somebody, do you ever get to the point of thinking, I shouldn't really be doing this?
No.
No?
Of course not. I mean, the ones we all hate, but you have to do it, is child sex.
Yeah.
You have to do it, because every monster, every person who's guilty, as long as you don't say they're guilty to you, has a right to be tried and due process.
Yes.
And fairly.
But what I meant is, have you represented people where you thought, actually, this guy's not telling the truth? I mean, it must be.
No, really?
But there must be a moral. Of course. There must be a moral dilemma.
There's no moral dilemma, because my job is not to mislead the court. My job is not to make up defences. If someone says, "Look, I'm guilty," I say, "Well, mate, you've got to plead guilty, or you go somewhere else."
Right.
Simple and as straightforward as that. A lot of the public don't get that, but that's the way it is. So no moral dilemma at all.
Okay.
No.
And very often not that many morals in politics at all. And you decided to run for politics, and you got elected in Harlow, which had been a Labour.
Yeah, it was a Labour stronghold.
Almost. Could I call it a new town?
It was a new town.
Pretty much
built in about 1958, and I did it in 1983. And of course, I joined the Young Conservatives one reason only: sex. Like everyone else joined the Young Conservatives. And then I got interested in it, and they were desperate for someone to represent Harlow, which could not possibly.
And it was a no-hoper seat.
It was a no-hoper seat, and I said no. I wasn't even on the candidate list. For God's sake, we can't get anyone. So I said, all right, I'll do it. And then suddenly, at the age of 29, I found myself with a 3,000 majority. Yeah. And of course, buying your own council houses, which was very, very, very important indeed. The right to buy really made a difference and made people empowered. We were the first red wall. Harlow, Basildon, places like that. And in fact, a lot of the red walls you see now, like Dewsbury, they were Tory seats in the 80s.
I remember Newcastle South, I think.
Yeah, that's right. Darlington as well. Places like that.
We have seen these things.
There's nothing new in any of it. But,
and you were there from 83 until 97.
97,
So, I mean, a fairly long run.
14 years.
And you saw Mrs. Thatcher in her absolute prime.
Yeah, we didn't always agree. I reduced the majority of 104 to 4 on the. You probably don't remember it, but it was all about teeth and eyes. Thatcher had this idea to save £30 million, which is really the Foreign Office lunch bill, to stop the free sight test. People were going to go blind. Pensioners went blind, and to stop the free dental checkup. And I was on actually at the Museum of Moving Art. I was on every single TV channel simultaneously on one evening. It was a big issue. We lost.
I do remember you were quite a persistent sort of thorn.
Yeah.
You were more simpatico with John Major politically.
Oh, yeah, absolutely right. And David Cameron used to be a researcher to us all.
Yes.
So I've been very much. I'm sort of centre right. I mean, but where am I now? Under Boris Johnson. You and I may disagree. However you believe what you say, Boris is a self-made man who worships his own creator.
So last night we had Christopher Biggins in.
Oh, good man, Biggins.
And he's been a Conservative all his life.
Yeah.
And he was pretty disobliging about Boris.
Yes.
On the basis that he doesn't think Boris is really being particularly Conservative or giving leadership. What is Boris Johnson?
Boris Johnson is friendless. Boris Johnson, the thing you'll hate about him most of all, never buys a round.
Good.
I know. I mean, that's quite seriously. Yeah, what a rotter. But he doesn't really believe in anything.
When you called him once, or recently actually, you said he was a copper-bottomed, double-dealing, hypocritical little so-and-so. Do you stand by that?
That was my charm offensive.
Ah, right.
I think I was being very kind, actually. But you speak to backbenchers as well as I do, and you know what they're thinking. You read Conservative Home as well as I do. You know what the grassroots are thinking. You think, what have we done? We thought we were going to have this great saviour who got us a majority.
Yeah.
But he's not competent. And worse, he actually appoints people who are not competent. Look around that cabinet.
It's deliberate, isn't it?
Of course it is.
It's deliberate.
Yes.
I mean, and isn't it funny? It was as if he was happy for Hancock to take all the stick for, the care home disaster.
Yeah.
He's now quite happy for Raab.
Of course.
To take as much.
Blame the Foreign Office. He's done.
So where does British politics go?
It's horrible, actually. people like me are disenfranchised. I'll vote Tory because I suppose I'll have to.
Yeah.
But I don't feel happy about it. I won't have a spring in my step. I don't know how long he's going to last because the backbenchers are really fed up. And there's lots of things, lots of elephant traps coming along. People have forgotten about the new planning legislation, which means in the Tory heartlands there's going to be an awful lot of concrete.
But our population's risen by 7 or 8 million in the last 20 years.
Yeah.
We have to build houses.
We have to build houses. It's a question of where. The next thing I read in one of the newspapers today, they want to charge prescriptions or charge pensioners prescriptions. That is a matter of insanity. And finally, the triple lock-on pensions.
Yeah.
Now, you know, that's going to go down very badly indeed.
But they can't raise pensions by 8%, can they?
Well, yeah, but if wages are going up, this was a manifesto commitment.
Yeah, I know. I know. But the big thing that's happened in British politics, and the reason Boris is even there as Prime Minister, and the reason he's got an 80 majority, and the reason that Labour are in the most desperate trouble, is the European question. Now, you know, as you know,
it has been resolved. I voted Remain, I campaigned for Remain, and I'll be honest with you, I felt bereaved when the answer came along. But I'm a Democrat. We had a referendum, and you can argue whether it was, you know, there were a load of lies told on either side. It doesn't matter.
In any election, ever.
Yeah, but there's a few whoppers about buses, and you weren't responsible for that.
No.
No, you weren't standing in front of a bus because they didn't want anything to do with you.
No.
No.
Well, we know the reason for that. Because they didn't want to talk about immigration. Because I don't think they actually wanted to win.
No, they didn't want to win.
They didn't want to win.
On Gove's face.
Yeah, I know, shocked.
The absolute shock. Yeah. What do we do now?
Well, what have we done, I think. Yeah, no, they didn't really want to win. It was about positioning in the Conservative Party. And let's be honest about it. The opening of the doors in the way that we did, the dramatic changes that occurred in people's local communities, the compression of wages, the lack of access to local primary school places, GP appointments, that's why people voted to leave the European Union.
I think that's probably right. We used to call it the old Alf Garnett vote, the old Northern trade union. I know it's really patronising.
So snobby thing.
It's not being snobby, but that's what we used to say. But it's reality.
You look down at them.
It's not looking down at people at all. No, it's because that is the reality. You see, Alf Garnett was a Labour supporter, wasn't he? Yeah. Well, sort of.
Actually, he said he was a Tory. Well, he came from a Labour background. But I do think, Jerry, and you're great fun to be with, but I do think even saying that, the fact that people in Westminster call it the Alf Garnett vote, shows you the problem that we've still got in British politics. There is a disconnect. I think there's been a disconnect for a very, very long time.
Yeah. And it's a problem. You go to the House of Commons now, and they're all driven people, one way or the other. That's not the way it should be. The most important thing you do is look after your constituents.
And what's happened to working class people in politics?
I don't know. I don't know.
Because we talk about diversity the whole time, and yet the class system is so entrenched in politics. It's not true.
And there's a fast track. There's a caste system in politics. If you've been a special advisor, if you've been a spad to a minister, you're going to be a cabinet minister. You become a professional politician. People do not want professional politicians. And of course, you're talking about wages. Yeah. We've got a problem. What's happened to monetarism? What's happened to Thatcherism? Too much money chasing too few goods. Good heavens. Inflation is going to go rip-roaringly high.
Isn't this the HGV story to a certain extent?
Well, yeah, it is. Because, OK, they've been treated fairly badly.
Yeah.
OK, there's a shortage of HGV.
But we need more. But the more of us want to buy the same products.
Of course we do.
There's a shortage of products, a shortage of drivers.
£22 billion worth of savings, which are going to be splurged. Wages are going up. You're going to get a more dominant trade union movement, and now you've got someone who's running Unite.
Yep.
Very dangerous person. It is, you know, get into the Mondeo and go back to the 70s.
I was going to say, are we going back to the 70s?
We're going back to the 70s and the 80s. And I remember those days. People forget, under Harold Wilson, the successive Labour government's inflation was well into double figures.
Yeah.
You had people sitting around, beer and sandwiches at number 10 Downing Street, deciding how much you were going to be paid.
Yeah.
And of course, it didn't work. Wages were let rip, then inflation let rip. Interest rates under Thatcher were about 12%.
Yeah.
Everyone forgets that.
Yeah.
Inflation, I think we got it down to about 8%, but that was considered really good news.
So inflation is going to go up.
But the banks won't have it. And in America, they won't have it either. The central bankers in America say, no, there's not inflationary pressure.
But I'm a cynic here, you see.
Yeah.
Because I think they're talking down inflation when they secretly want inflation because they've borrowed so much blooming money since the '08 collapse in financial markets. I think that they inflate their way out of that debt and we all pay for it effectively.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think that's probably... But why don't people say it in Parliament? Who says, look, we all believe in Margaret Thatcher because a lot of them do. None of them ever met her, of course. I mean, all the cabinet were at school when I was a member of Parliament. And someone say, oh, did you know Margaret Thatcher? I says, yeah, you know, when she was sane.
Apart from your later disagreement with Thatcher, I mean, you were elected on a Thatcher ticket.
Yeah, of course I was.
Which was a tough economic ticket of dealing with inflation.
She was honest. She was principled. I may have disagreed, but she knew exactly where you were with her. She would be revolving in her grave to see what is happening now.
And how was she with you as a junior backbencher?
Oh, she's great. She was lovely.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember going in for a dressing down. I can't remember what it was about. I had a sort of industrial-sized gin, and she sort of comes in. And if this was... Now, this is weird. You've probably forgotten this, but you couldn't get a drink after 2:30 in a pub.
I remember.
You couldn't. It was just insane. So you set up lots of daft, very dodgy little clubs.
Yeah,
down
a flight of stairs.
Down a flight of stairs, you know, all that sort of stuff. Well, what happened was there was a third reading about Sunday trading. That was another big thing. Sunday trading. For heaven's sake. Churches were against it. And I said, oh, yeah, Douglas, who was then Home Secretary, I said, has promised us a free vote on the third reading. She says, what? And this is... Oh, so I don't know what happened to him. But, you know.
You deflected it very effectively. When you look back at it all, I mean...
It's fun.
It was fun. You really enjoyed it?
It was fun. It was a different...
You were a very prominent figure.
I got there by accident. Yeah. And I thought, I'm going to make the most of it.
Yeah.
I don't like discipline. I really don't like being told what to do.
The tabloid press enjoyed you a lot.
Well, yeah.
They had a lot of fun at your expense.
Well, when I first met, I thought I first met Piers Morgan when he was editor of News as well. He said, no. When I was 18, you took me around the House of Commons because Harley used to have a journalism course.
Okay.
So I've known dear old Piers.
Yeah.
Can I just mention one thing on wokery?
Yeah, go on.
You were mentioning.
Please.
Have you seen the latest thing, Paw Patrol? Have you seen that? You know, it's a children's cartoon where there's lots of dogs, and the hero dogs are police officers. Oh, no. It's showing them in a good light. Well, why shouldn't the police be shown in a good light?
Yeah.
I don't get it. The other one, The Tiger Who Came to Tea, I read them to my grandchildren.
Yes.
And I remember before the author died, and she died fairly recently, she was asked, well, The Tiger is really about domestic violence. No, dear. It's about a tiger who came to tea. And now the woke brigade are trying to ban it because the man is in a dominant position because he takes them to a cafe. Now, I'm sorry. Yeah. That is insane.
So... all through the history of mankind, we have these great battles.
Yep.
I mean, is this country a better place than it was 40 years ago?
It's difficult to say. I think probably yes, because you look at the way people were treated racially. Yep. It was wrong. You look at some of the programmes, so even the goodies. I think the younger, everyone's younger than me, but the younger generation are far more tolerant, far more decent than I think we ever were. And that's a really, really, really good thing. I'm optimistic about the future. I'm just not optimistic about politics. No. People, look, the way this lot are behaving, I'm a Tory. It's exactly central casting. This is how politicians behave. They've got fingers in the till. They are not too many people who are corrupt, but I mean, it looks
some of the dishing out of PPE contracts, etc. It does not look pretty.
It does not look pretty.
No.
At all. It really does.
Politics in a mess.
Politics in a terrible mess.
But it's always been in a mess, really, hasn't it?
Not as bad as that. Not as bad as that.
And public trust?
Gone. Of all the major institutions, Church of England, you'd be lucky if you meet a C.V. vicar. I know I'm going to get in trouble with this. Well, certainly a bishop who actually believes in God.
That's not possible.
God is a symbol.
Yeah.
And I was talking about the power of prayer the other day. Well, prayer is just really being remembered. Yeah. I said, I don't want to be remembered. I want to be with all the people I love and like in a perpetual lunch at the Savile Club, you know. That's what I want.
You've got loads of stuff you can do, and you do media, and you do your barristering, but I mean, you seem to have such a passion for some of these things.
Well, yeah.
Have you ever thought about going back into politics?
No.
No.
It's not anymore. You'd have loved it in the 80s. You'd have really, really loved it. There was a club which you would have been a member of called the Wednesday Club. And they even had ties whereby everyone would be drunk by 11 o'clock in the morning. And it was just, that was... Now you go into the bar. No, I shouldn't say this. But people are drinking tea and people are drinking coffee.
How awful.
It is awful.
No, I'd have enjoyed the Wednesday Club.
You would have enjoyed it.
Jerry Hayes, thank you for joining me on Talking Pints. That was Jerry Hayes.